Okay, so game students, I received some feedback from the past two assignments, and it seems like the remote desktop is painfully laggy and it doesn't really work. And then there's also the issues of saving with Unity. So we're going to try something totally different. Every now and then, you sort of have to throw away something you thought it might work, and then it doesn't. So we're going to try something new in the last couple of classes here. What I want to do is I want to show you a feature of your Chromebook that you might not know about, and that is that you can actually activate Linux applications on your Chromebook. So what we're going to do is we're going to today set up a development environment so that we can, in these last couple of days, start learning how to develop video games in a totally different framework than we've been doing so far. Basically HTML, CSS, and JavaScript games. So HTML5 games, web-based games. We're going to explore doing that with straight JavaScript, then also with a framework called Phaser. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over here to my Chromebook. I'm actually remoting into a Chromebook, so you can see, this is weird. I'm going to go full screen here, so it actually looks like a Chromebook. And okay, I'm happy with that. Now, what I want to show you here is that in your Chromebook settings down here, let me clear all that. Let me clear this also, whatever. If you click on the settings button right here, you're gonna see in your Chromebook, there's this Linux parentheses beta section right here. What we wanna do is we wanna go and we wanna turn this on. So set up Linux beta on your Chromebook. We're gonna click install. All right, so it may take a few moments to go ahead and do this. So while this is processing, I'm actually going to pause the video and then I'll come back once it is done. Okay, once the initialization process is finished, you're going to see that this application opens up called Terminal. So Terminal is sort of like the way the computers were before there was a graphical user interface. And so in Linux, it's still used quite a lot. And so what you're looking at right here is essentially this folder that you can see. If you go to the directory structure right here, you'll see on the local machine, it says My Files, Downloads. You now have this thing called Linux Files. It's sort of outside of your Google Drive. And if you look, there's nothing in it. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it temp for now, just to sort of illustrate a process. In Terminal, if I go ahead and I type ls, that is the command for listing what's inside of the folder. Remember, we're in the Linux files folder right here, and we press enter, it will show you that there is a temp folder. In this terminal, blue text that you see right in this area will appear, that means that it's a folder. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete this because we actually don't need this. And I'll hit delete, and then I go back to terminal, I can ls again, and you'll see there's nothing there inside it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Google Classroom, we're going to go visit the link to code.visualstudio.com/download, and we're going to download the Linux version of this piece of software. It's a .deb file, and we're going to click the download button, and it's going to say, thanks for downloading VS Code. It's going to ask where we want to save it. And we want to not save it to the downloads folder. We want to save it to the Linux files folder. And we don't have to change the name or anything right there. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to click save. And so we're going to go ahead and let that process take place. We can look in the Linux files folder. You might have to click the refresh button, and it might take a little while. So while it is downloading, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to pause the video. Okay, so you may have noticed that I'm in a different outfit, and it's actually a whole nother day because I finished recording this video, but then I realized there's actually a better way to install it. So I'm gonna show you that right now. It might not mean anything to you since you didn't see the old one, but I digress. Let me switch back over to my Chromebook, and all right. So I think you should be seeing my screen right now. Once the file is downloaded, it'll be called, code dot blah, 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 blah. You'll see that it's a .deb file. It stands for Debian. It's a Linux sort of it's a flavor of Linux, but it doesn't really matter. What we're going to do is we're going to right click and we're going to go to install with Linux beta. And you'll get this sort of warning message, and you'll go ahead and you'll just click install. Now this may take a few moments for it to process, and so we can see down here in the sort of installation progress bar, we sort of watch how it goes. You'll see the message, the installation has successfully started. Okay, if you click right here on your shelf, you see I've moved mine to the left since I recorded, and you see that there's Linux apps right here. We're going to launch Visual Studio Code. Now you might also notice that I have Steam and Super Meat Boy installed on this computer. That's because this works for really any Linux application. So I've installed Steam on my Chromebook. That might be exciting to some of you game design students. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Visual Studio Code right here, and you're going to see that it launches as this standalone application, as if it was, you know, any other normal computer. So we're going to do one additional thing right here. We're going to click in Visual Studio Code. I'll exit out of here, and I'm going to click the extensions right here. So we're going to add another feature to this called Live Server. And so we'll find launch a web development local server. This is the one that we want at the top, live server 5.6.1. We're going to click install. Visual Studio Code is this nice text editor that has all these like bonus features that you can install in order to sort of add functionality to your computer. And so we're going to go ahead and let that finish installing. I'll exit out of here. You might get a number of messages right at the beginning. We don't really care about that. While that is installing, I am going to, okay, good, it's installed. I'm going to click right here, and I'm going to open up a folder. All right, so I'm going to open up a folder. Let's go to home. And you'll notice that home is that same Linux beta folder that we were looking at before. And so here, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new folder. By clicking this button, we're going to call it code, and we'll use lowercase letters. It doesn't really matter for this purpose. We'll hit OK. So now we have in the sidebar over here sort of our own little directory viewer. And so in our code folder for today, what we're going to do is create a new file by clicking this button here. We're going to call it index.html. And since HTML5 development is all based on web technologies, we're going to build, you know, basically like the simplest website that is possible. This is going to violate all sorts of like best practices, but we're just going to type in the words hello world, like so. We're going to press file, save, and then we're going to go into view command palette. You can press Control Shift P as well. We're going to type in live server, and we're going to choose open with live server. And what that's going to do is that's going to open up in the Chrome browser right here. You're going to see the website that you just created. Like you just created your first website. Congratulations. Okay, so that is the lesson. Hopefully it was able to work for you. And this is sort of this is the development environment that we're going to be working in. I think it's going to be a lot better than trying to use the virtual desktop that we were exploring earlier. All right, catch you later.